Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Money Hour. Every Wednesday, we do the Money Hour from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Every week, I try to bring you a new and dynamic guest to talk about money, the hard facts of money, the dollars and cents of money, but also to talk about some of the softer things about money, those things we don't think about. Like tonight, we're going to talk about emotional intelligence with Miss Chaundra Daniels. Say hello to everybody, Chaundra.
Hi, everybody. How are you? Hi, Kamari.
Hello.
How are
How are
you?
you?
I am fantastic.
All right, everybody. Chandra is a humor consultant. And what that means for all of you who are not familiar is that Chandra couples laughter, humor with consulting practices to help people get through very, very tough um, situations. For example, firings, hirings, team disputes. She's got a lot of experience with team disputes.
Conflict
But
resolution.
she uses emotional intelligence to do a lot of these things. Currently, she's employed at Hofstra University up in New York. And so I wanted to bring Chandra on because, again, this is something we really don't talk about. We see people get very, very upset about either losing money or sometimes getting a whole lot of money. And it's all because of their emotional responses. And then sometimes they wild out and do crazy things. And people don't understand why they do it. For example, when people win the lottery, it usually ruins their life. 9 times out of 10 is because they don't have a good check over their emotions and they don't have a lot of discipline. I'm always in the stock markets and looking at things, and I see sometimes people lives are ruined or at least their day is really bad when they see these swings in the market take place, and it puts them in a whole other altered mood, a whole other state. So, like I said, I wanted to bring Chandra on so we could talk about that and really figure out ways how we can navigate that and actually start to use it for our benefit. Chandra, did I miss anything in that intro?
No, you didn't. That was great. That
That
was a
was
great
great.
intro. But you always
Um,
do great intro. So,
so
thank you.
honored.
I'm honored to be on the Money Hour. I love this show. I watch it every week faithfully.
You watch it every week.
Every week. Well, in and
Thank you
out,
for
but I
telling me
do
that.
watch it. I do watch it.
All right, so let's start it off. What exactly is emotional intelligence?
I figured you would ask me that first, because that's what the show is about. And
Hmm.
so let's get straight to it. And I'm going to actually read it so that way there's no miscommunication that I defined it wrong. And that way those who are watching can be clear. So emotional intelligence is the ability. So it's an ability. It's definitely something you have to learn how to do, to identify and manage your own emotions, and the emotions of others. It is generally said to include three skills. So you have to really have these three skills: emotional awareness, the ability to harness emotions and to apply them to tasks like thinking and problem solving, and the ability to manage through groups. So it is a skill set. It's about
Okay. Now
being
you read the definition, the Webster's definition. How do you define it yourself?
How do I define emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence is really about being conscious that you are working with people. Work and anything you do is about relationships. Everything we do is about relationships, and understanding that when you are encountering any type of business deal or any type of contract or any type of work, essentially be able to understand that you're working with a person. And so you're able to be aware not only of your needs, but the needs of others and take those into account. That's really a simple and practical terms. Is how you interact and how you engage your emotions with folks can impact the relationship positively or negatively.
So that almost sounds like you're not a selfish person, that you think about other people.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, yes. And it does take time to really think about it. But I was recently moderating a panel for the National Diversity Council, and one of the panelists put it just so perfectly. This emotional intelligence is what was taught to you by your parents. Um, say please and thank you, be kind, ask questions, listen. We tend not to do that. Communication, 90% of it is listening, the other 10% is responding.
I don't know. You think it's really taught by your parents though?
It should be. It
Yeah,
depend on,
but
and listen. I'm not criticizing parenting because I don't have any kids. So, but I do have parents.
you staying clear of that one, huh?
I'm staying clear of that conversation. But it really is um, basic human engagement that requires you to be able to not only see yourself in situations, but able to see the other person as well.
Mm, okay. I mean, so give us some examples when, and I know the answer to this question, but give us some examples when emotional intelligence really is the key to something.
Okay, the biggest person that really uses emotional intelligence that we all know is Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey is empathetic. She uses empathy. A part of being emotionally intelligent is empathy, and she's always giving. So she's really, really in tune into being able to share what she knows. She's grown into her personhood, and we've seen it throughout the years of how she's used her show and her platform in order to enable the lives of other. In addition to building her own quote unquote empire, in order to be where it is today. It took her 25 years to get to have the own network. And then when she started the own network, she had to be able to be adaptable to bring on people to help her grow what she needed to grow. Now, of course, we saw the headlines and the tabloids and the rumors of the relationship she's had with some of the people that have helped her grow her network. For instance, Iyanla Van Zant, right? They have been um, knowing each other for years, but there's also been reports that there haven't been good relations between the two. Well, somehow, some way, they both adapted to be able to work together. That now the Fix Your Life, was it Ayana Fix My Life,
Hmm.
is one of the top shows on the OWN network. Tyler Perry at one time was really hardly. Actually, he helped with launch some of OWN's biggest shows. I think the Have and Have Nots, and
Have nots, and there's another one he does on there. I forget what it is.
right, but he was able to come together and work with Oprah, but she had to extend herself and to give and say, I need help, and be adaptable and to work out what it needs to be for her to grow her network. And so looking at um that skill set of being empathetic and understanding that it's not just me, it's about you. How can I help you? Not only will it help you, but it helped me, helped her grow her network to be actually growing to be one of the fastest networks on cable television.
But I know, the running joke about Oprah is that everybody that goes on her show, well, when there was an Oprah Winfrey show, was that everybody would cry that they went on. So I'm guessing her ability to tap into people's emotions where they were shows that she has emotional intelligence, and she wasn't just having a surface conversation, but she was going a bit deeper.
Right. Well, it's her ability to connect with the common story of humanity. I think is why people were able to cry, because all her shows were somewhat heartfelt from some angle.
Mm.
But she had a team that she had to be able to work. I mean, before she's also a producer, so not only was she the host and the personality, she was behind the scenes to make sure that this worked, which means she had to lead a team, which means she also had to learn how to adapt. And I'm saying emotional intelligence, you really don't come out the womb just saying, "Oh, I love everybody. Let's get along." It's trial and error. You really, really grow into this, but you have to know that it exists. You have to know that this term was this. It was termed back in 1995. Um,
Oh,
you
so
know,
it's relatively new.
it's relatively new when it comes to the business sense, but it's been around for a very long time. Someone just termed it, coined it, branded it, and was able to write about it and make it more feasible.
Gotcha.
It's used in performance evaluations. It's used all across business. It's very used subtly. We just don't pay attention to it because it's really about social engagement and how we work in relationships.
And during the intro, I kind of jokingly talked about how you've um, uh, worked through some team dynamic issues. I know you've helped with some team dynamic issues at your jobs. Just doing consulting. I know you've had major Fortune 500 companies that were consultants of yours, or you worked with a consultancy that was their clients, and you've helped people. I mean, can you give us an idea of what you've done for them? The kind of work you've done.
Sure. The biggest issue I see is on teams. I do what's called the Strengths Finders 2.0 assessment, which is helping people identify their strengths, changing the narrative of the conversation of the team to be able to speak to each other's strengths and see where we can work better together. And what I found is that mostly in teams, we find that people tend to gravitate to what the problem is. And so having the opportunity to identify what the solutions can be has been definitely where I have come in to be helpful. So it's really asking people where they are, slowing down the process of how they interact, and taking each member of the team and finding their uniqueness of the team and bringing it to the table. Sometimes, we get to these jobs, we get onboarded, and it's all about the work. And we forget about, again, that the work is about the people. How do you engage with the client, your internal and external clients? And what has happened is that folks tend to want to one up each other, or they don't want to listen to one another, or you have people who have egos, and we all have them. Trust me, we do.
Well, I was going to say that everything you just named was a function of ego and
Right.
egotism.
Right. And so understanding that ego has its place, but in a team, it really allows, you have to be able to adapt accordingly. And so one particular group that I've worked with had to deal with who basically was going to be the true leader of the team, and how that was going to be supported. And because they were all leaders themselves, it was difficult for the other leaders to fall back and say, okay, this person is the person that we want to be able to speak for us and represent us. And it was a definitely challenging situation, but in the end of the contract, we were able to have an opportunity to kind of find out what the issue was. And it really was because the person who was identified as the leader didn't want to be the leader.
Mm.
Right, they did not really want to be the leader. They were chosen by everybody else, but that person themselves. And the biggest thing about being emotionally intelligent, is being self-aware. You have to be aware of where you are in your own progress. This is not therapy, this is not counseling, this is all just regular, every day, taking your time, understanding their skill sets. These are soft skills, these are totally soft skills that you learn as you engage with people and work in relationships. And to
Yeah.
have better working relationships, you really have to take time to get to know not only the other person, but be very aware of who you are and where you're at. And so this person was able to say to the group, hey guys, I really didn't want to be in charge of this project in the first place. Well, that solved the problem, because the person who really stepped up to the plate got it done, and then the rest of the team really adapted to it. Um, and it was great, but it took 3 months for us to identify who really wanted to be a part of leading and taking charge of the project.
Why did it take so long?
It took so long because people weren't being authentic and being honest. That's a part of it too. Being aware is being honest of your good, bad, and all the indifference. And I find people who work in the more financial areas, because profit is so right. Like yourself, profit is it drives a lot. Um, it's a challenge to understand that profit and people can go together. It can work, but you have to be honest. You have to be totally honest and transparent.
But
And
usually, what I find when people aren't honest or they don't feel they can be transparent, there's no safe spaces that have been established. And sometimes the teams are toxic. So, was that the case there, or was it just they were very fearful of being open and honest?
they didn't know how to be open and honest, because they were never asked to be. They were never asked to be. And you have a lot of cultures, you have a lot of work cultures where people are allowed to be who they are, and there's no established value system in place. Everybody just follows what the next person does. So you have to kind of slow down with your teams and understand your organization and ask what the mission is. Go back to the mission, go back to the values that are listed. And that's what we did. I went right to their website, printed it off, and we had our meeting. I said, look at what are the values in the mission of the organization? What are you guys doing? Where are you looking to be? And then we started to have these subtle conversations that came to the point. And the gentleman was just like, Chandra, I don't want to do this. This is not what I'm doing. I think such and such would be better. Wait, what?
What
And the
I mean, I guess
they
my question is, do
identified
you
was
think?
the person who pointed him out to be the leader. It was totally chaos. It was very chaotic.
But had the culture had created a safe space, do you think that process would have went faster?
Yes, but here's the thing, and you and I hip hop heads, and we talk about this a lot, so we do a lot of hip hop references. So most Def has this song, "Fear Not a Man," right? And it has this interlude of people treat hip hop like it's some
Wow.
beat in the sky, right? And then when you realize that hip hop is the people, well, the culture of the organization is the people. They have to create the safe space.
Right.
And
He
they
says,
really,
where is hip hop going to be in 20 years? And then it comes back and says, well, hip hop is going to be wherever the people is in 20 years.
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So
One of
you're
my favorite quotes.
right.
What's that?
What did you say?
No, I just quoted, I paraphrased most of that quote.
Right. Well, you're good. That was a great quote because that's one of my favorite songs. But nonetheless, and the reason why is because of that. You know, where you will be and where your organization will be is where you are. Your people are your organization. So it's not something way out where you can't help and get done. So I think that was really the key core of our conversation, is helping them understand that they were part of the change they needed to have. And that's really a piece of it too. And this was a
But
small business. It wasn't a big corporation. It was a very small business that had about 10 or 12 employees.
I guess, just from some of my reading and study, is that you have to be very deliberate about your people and your culture, and be proactive about shaping that, so you can have these open and honest discussions through safe spaces and things like that. And so
Definitely.
I was wondering if you had a perspective on that at all.
Of having safe space and creating
Yeah,
safe
and
space.
creating it and crafting a culture where, as though, people can be open and authentic and honest and transparent.
That is something that I think is a societal issue,
Mm,
because we put so much out there. Everything is so much going so fast, that people create the illusion of being safe, with just putting things out there, that everybody now wants to retreat to privacy issues. I don't want to put so much out there because everything is out there. So it's the safe space has to do with people sitting down and having that. And it really, people think top leadership drives that, but again, you can go to top leadership and say senior leadership and have a conversation about that.
right,
Um,
right.
I think what happens is people see their CEOs, they see their VPs as these big people who you're unable to have conversations with, and that's not the case. You can make an appointment and meet with your CEO at any time, at any time.
I
Um,
don't know about that.
yeah, you can. You can. You work for that organization. Yes, you can. Now, you might have to fit his schedule, but you can meet with them. You might take some perseverance, but no, that is
Okay, all right. You said the right thing. It might take some perseverance,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean it can't be done. And I think that right there, what you just did is exactly what happens. I don't know if I want to. That's exactly what happens. In order to create safe spaces, you have to take risk. And well, this is finance, right? This is a finance show. This money show. Risk is what? What is risk, Kamari? Let me put that back to you. What is risk?
What is risk?
Mm-hmm.
Risk is interpreted differently by different people, but my definition of risk is um, uh, the probability of loss of capital, or that's how you measure it. I know that's very technical,
But you
but
define
I
it as
guess it's the fear of loss, right?
loss, right?
No
The
matter
fear of
what
loss,
situation you're in.
right? But where is the advantage of gain in that definition?
Well, so what you're talking about risk reward. And so that's a little different. Risk is definitely a major component in it. Um, so you're talking about my risk reward, and I hate that I'm nerding out on you right now. I'm sorry,
It's
because it
okay.
doesn't
It's
it,
fine.
it doesn't make for a good interview, and I'm the
No,
interviewer.
it's a good
Um,
interview. It's a great interview.
no, 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 no. But I got what you're saying. So you're saying the risk reward has to be on target, whereas though a person feels that they will be able to win more times than lose.
Right.
And so I got what you're saying. So in the organization, they need to be thinking about that and creating a culture where a person again feels open and feels like they can be open and honest, because they're not feeling that they're going to fail or fall flat on their face.
Right. Absolutely right. So, it's taking the opportunity, even if it's one person. A lot of organizations have employee resource groups that you can join,
Mm.
where if you need assistance, whether it be a women's group, whether it be an LGBT group, whether it be a disability group, whether it be any group that allows you to kind of speak to the core of who you are, to start having these conversations. Those and organizations are really your safe spaces. Those really are, because they usually are employee created and generated for the benefit of the workforce.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Everybody, if you are just now joining us, you're listening and watching The Money Hour. Tonight's special guest is Miss Chaundra Daniels. She is a humor consultant. Basically, she mixes humor with therapy. That's what I like to say.
No, don't say therapy, please. That's
but
because
but
I
she
no,
helps.
I'm
She
not
helps.
sending for that license. I'm not doing that.
All right, she helps. She helps people work through difficult situations by using her humor. She's actually a comedian too, but a lot of times she won't claim that. I'm Kamari Ellis. If you are just watching this on the replay, type in replay in the comments. If you're watching it now, put your questions in. We're going to have some time tonight to answer some questions. And tonight's topic is, how do we use emotional intelligence to help create more wealth? Because everything we do, every interaction that we have requires that we manage our emotions. And
Right.
many times, especially in this society, our emotions are out of line, out of check. I mean, I've seen people, the term go postal is at top of the mind, but I've seen people really blow up at jobs. I've seen people blow up on clients. I've seen people blow up in various opportunities, whereas though, they lost money or had the potential of losing money go higher. I mean, we just had, I hate to bring this up, but it's top of mind. We just had Cardi B and Nicki Minaj fighting at the Harper Collins Fashion Week event. So how much financial damage could that possibly um, be held onto them? Right? I mean, people don't think about it, but sometimes these artists won't get booked because they're felt that they're being difficult. Sometimes they won't get booked, especially if they think they fight a lot, because insurance rates go up. A lot of venues don't want to be bothered with that. Clearly, and there's no right or wrong in that situation to me, but clearly somebody's or both of their emotions were out of balance and they couldn't manage that situation.
Um, Basically, but it also in these days and times of reality TV, it makes for good click and beat. It makes for good
Clickbait.
people
I,
watch.
I would agree with that. I
Right,
would agree
but
with that.
I agree with it, but I think that is the wrong tactic for these two women of color to be going at each other at a time when they could be using their platform for a better positioning of who they are, especially in the game that they're in.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think that if one of the things that we're talking about emotional intelligence, one of the things that is very important if you're looking, especially when you're looking to create wealth, and we're going to really talk about that and go deep dive into that in a moment, is that you really, really have to seek out your allies and find people who can help you with the decisions you make and to be smarter. So Nikki and Cardi would do best if they had mentors. And when I say mentor, I mean business mentors as well as artist mentors to really help them with their careers.
I mean,
Again,
Foxy Brown is Nicki's mentor. That was a joke.
so
If
I
you
know.
don't if you don't follow hip hop, just ignore that.
No, listen. So MC Light, Queen Latifah, they would be great, right? And I'm
Mhm.
and I'm saying that because
I
um,
agree.
of who they are in the industry and how long and the longevity of their careers. And so Cardi and Nikki could benefit from having people like that around them, and in true business sense, having some business folks on behind the scenes helping them. But again, being in this reality type world that we live in, it makes for good TV.
Right.
Unfortunately, people
Right.
gravitate towards the negativity. So
I
um,
agree. I
I'm
agree.
hoping that it gets better. I am. I really don't like to see that, but
Right. I agree. If for everybody, if you have not shared this conversation yet, please share it. I'm pretty sure there's plenty of people who need help with developing their emotional intelligence to help them make more money. So share it with friends, family, your whole Facebook community. Now,
right.
Chandra, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
I would love to go through some little role play to really get tactical and get down in the weeds to see how we can use emotional intelligence. Like if somebody is dealing with a client and the client is belligerent, how would you deal with that? If you went in with for a job negotiation, or for a job negotiation, and they didn't offer you a salary that you wanted, or if you had a year review at your job and you wanted a salary raise and you didn't get it, what are some of these things, real life things that we can go through
Okay,
and,
so
and think about how to address?
I'm gonna quote someone who we both admire, just because I just think he's so dope, and he owns one of the greatest diamond companies right now. Is and is it diamond? Yeah, Berkshire Hathaway, Berkshire. Yes,
They own a lot of stuff.
well, the diamonds were like, you know. blah blah blah. But
Yeah.
he said if you can't control emotions, you can't control your money.
Mm,
Like and that's Warren Buffett, by the way. So if you cannot the way, okay, we're about to go deep dive. So the way we spend, the way we use our money is totally tied to our emotions. Totally.
mhm,
And you and I have had conversations about this on many occasions. You look at the market, you look at what happens, and you look at what happens in society, right? And you want to role play. Let me expand that a little bit, and not even role play. Let's take it a little deeper. Um, what we're experiencing in this country is very interesting right now. It's challenging, but it's a good challenge if you really want to see it for what it is. We are being hit over the head day by day by day by um, racism and alleged racist remarks and things of this sort. But racism really is tied to your emotions, how you respond. And it's really tied to how not only we respond, but how the market responds to it as well. And so it's really a driving force of how we trade and how we do trade. And I think I mentioned this to you before. Take a look at the market when something big happens, and see what happens that day, and then see the trend. I just ask you guys to do that. It's really not that deep. It's really right in front of us, and it's really important to be aware that this is not only something that we have to um, not only pay attention to, but also how do we respond to, right? Emotional people shop, emotional people spend money, emotional people don't, when you're very emotional and you don't have control of your emotions, anything can happen, right? And so it's important to be able to kind of take it down a notch and really kind of sit and really realize what's happening. Now that's on the macro level, micro
mhm.
level. You asked about, an incident or something.
Wait a minute, wait a minute. You know what? You were going somewhere.
Right.
I like that, man. We can come back to that. I do want to do that, but you're talking about how people are reacting to all these things that are just in the universe, and a lot of it is communicated through social media and the news.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, to damper that down and protect ourselves more, does it make sense to get off social media at times and turn the TV off or the radio off or your phone off
You
and
have
just be by yourself or listen to something a bit more inspirational, so to speak?
or read. I mean, get back to hard work reading. Let's stay here. Let's use the perfect example of Nike. What just happened? What just happened? That's a great example. What just happened with Nike, right? What do they do? What do they do? They back up Colin Kaepernick. And what happens to their stock, Kamari? What happens?
It fell for the day, but it
But
went back up.
right, but then what happened to the spending and the investment in the company?
In the company or in the stock?
In the company, what happened? Overspent 31%. It was reported that 31% it increased.
Increased
Right. And why did that happen?
because Nike tapped into an emotion.
There you go. That was the most
Absolutely.
realest one, and this couldn't happen. This conversation could happen at a better time. This is what happens. This is what
Mhm.
happens. People are, oh my God, I gotta go out and do this. Just I don't know, a couple of months ago, a year ago, they was mad at Nike for something else. You know what I mean? Or
Mhm.
the people who were involved with making different brand shoes with Nike. So it's a very very interesting topic to really be mindful of, because we all have emotions. We're people, and there are people who study this stuff, and there are people who really really get it.
I
And
mean, corporations spend billions of dollars every year on psychologists and therapists to figure out emotional triggers for people
right,
to get people to spend their money. I mean, marketing and sales is about the transfer of emotions, so you can transfer your dollars and cents into their
right,
wallets.
right.
So I agree. That actually is a great one. I wasn't even thinking about it. And I did a video about it.
Yeah, but I mean that's macro level. But when we're talking about personal level and how it affects us personally, um, salary negotiations is the best uh I want to say example, because it talks about your value. Um, and you mentioned earlier that I work at Hofstra. I am a career consultant with their School of Business, and I work with their students, MBA students and MS students, and job strategies and interviewing and things of that sort. And the biggest question I get is, I've just been offered a job, and how much should I ask for if they, and it's the hardest question to do because you know what? The way people value themselves, especially students starting out, and they don't want to ask for too much because it's like getting a job is like a privilege, and it's like, no, getting a job is real because you just spent $100,000 on a degree. You have to somehow get that money back, right?
Mm.
So you should be able to get at least a return on your investment. And how do you do that is how do you value yourself? I say this to anybody, whether it's my students, my personal friends, myself. I tell myself every day, I'm wealthy by design. I wake up wealthy. I'm not lacking of anything. I'm not. I'm really not. And neither are you. You know what I mean? It's really about your mindset and how you see yourself in the world. What
Mhm.
I do need is to be able to tap into the resources to help me manifest um the wealth that is within me to be outside of me, but I am wealthy. And so when you see yourself starting from a point of wealth and not from a point of scarcity, you can operate a little bit better. And so when you're sitting in front of an employer about to do salary negotiations, you have to value yourself just as much as they value what they're giving you. And that requires you to be very in tune to who you are. It requires you to be adaptive to the culture that you're about to go into, to be curious and ask questions about what the job will entail, all the other pieces of your salary, just not the tangible pieces, the benefits, the package, everything.
Mhm.
It also requires you to be disciplined, not only when you do get your salary, but how do you budget? How do you develop a spending plan? You can't just get paid and then spend your money on frivolous things. As I've gotten older, Mari, it's not that much I need. It's really not. Roof over my head, food in my stomach, a bed to sleep in, um, and maybe a Snickers bar, right? So
Lipstick, glasses, earrings.
right. But those are accessories, right? All of these, this is accessory. This is accessory. I mean, in all honesty, right? But there are things that are needed. And so how do we discipline ourselves to really look at what we bring in to as what goes out? Get an advisor, really speak to a financial advisor is great to have. You know that, I know that, you've been one, you've been mine, you've been several others. So, understanding that having a financial advisor is important because finance is not an easy topic to handle by yourself. It's not. And a lot of
Nah.
people don't like to deal with their money. They don't. Money is like a bad marriage, a bad relationship. People have bad relationship with their money. And so
I always find it interesting, and I know you're being gracious and you're saying find a financial advisor. I always find that we need more financial education. We actually need more financial education before we even engage in an advisor. But I always find it very interesting that folks of a lower socioeconomic status um, don't really think about money at the same way as people at a higher socioeconomic status. They're not stressed out about it as much. They're more educated about it. It's very interesting to look at the two dynamics, and I always wonder why. And
because
I
why
wonder,
when I
but
don't
now,
have any money, when
yeah,
I'm
but I,
at the point of scarcity, money
yeah,
becomes
but wait a minute. I was going somewhere with it because I'm wondering, is it also tied to self esteem? Because you're talking about value. When a person values themselves, they see themselves in a different light. They feel like they have value. Oftentimes people in lower socioeconomic statuses don't feel like they have value, and I think that point you made is very, very important. Not to say that people of higher socioeconomic status are more valuable or less, but I always find that dynamic to be very interesting.
it is. I mean, it's when you come from a place of scarcity, then then scarcity breeds fear. And when you're coming from a place of fear, you're always trying to get more. It was chasing, like the guy from the Geico commercial. You're always chasing
Mm,
that thing. When you have, especially when you develop the habit to have, having is a habit. Being able to have something is because you've maintained to keep it. Once you get it, you have to maintain it. That's we talked about top of the hour about hitting the lottery. Why do a lot of people who hit the lottery end up being broke? It's they're not used to having all of that money, and
right.
they just it's like when a lot of people go into a lot of these high entertainment fields and make a lot of money. The struggle is maintaining. I mean, you come from having 0 to 50 in like, I don't know, and you just think it's unlimited. $1 million sounds like $1 million when you don't have $1 million.
Right. Right.
And when you have a million is not enough.
Yeah, because you got to pay tax for that million. So that million really ain't a million.
Exactly. So it's mindset. It's mindset. And it all, again, we're tying this topic back, is really being able to, understand where you are. The other piece is a part of, we were talking about a salary negotiation. I know I'm all over the place, but I want to close a conversation, is being able to handle rejection. Being able to handle rejection. We all struggle with that. I struggle with it. I can't tell you why. I am a professional comedian. I do go on stage, but the worst thing that can happen to a comedian is what? No laughs.
You're booed.
Not even the booing. At least they hear you. Crickets, you don't even know if they heard you. Right? You don't know if they were paying attention. And so rejection is something that the human spirit just it has a hard time dealing with. But if you're able to work through that and understand that, being able to let go of some things that are not good for you, and being able to ask for help and say, I need help with this, and being able to deal with it, it does help make things better. But we have to admit that some things don't work. And if you were given a no, sometimes that no is good for you. I can't see it now, but there might be a better opportunity.
But I guess, but going back to your value statement, right? I think part of it is knowing that somebody else's no doesn't necessarily detract from your value or take away from your value as well.
Exactly. Someone else's no doesn't mean that you're a no, right? It
Right.
means that your engagement with them is a no, right? It's
Right.
not. It's not. Actually, when someone tells you no, it's no for them. The no
Right.
for them. It's
Yep.
not your no. It's their no, right? And so again, that's being empathetic. Honestly, putting yourself in their shoes and say, "Oh, this is not even about me." It's really not. When someone tells you no, it's not even about you. But the smallest word in the vocabulary of the English language bothers all of us. No, what the no. That's why they don't have a dislike button on the Facebook.
Right. Right.
If I don't like this, what? You rejected me? Oh my God. They'd have shut it down a long time ago.
Well, there is a sad face, there's an angry face, and there's a whoa now. For the longest time, they didn't have that.
Yeah, but again, it's not a no.
It doesn't. Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's not a clear cut no.
It's kind of like, nah, I'm not feeling you, or oh my God, I can't believe you said that.
Right. It can mean a lot of things. It's a bit ambiguous.
But it's not like, girl, please, get out of here. Dude, get out of that. No, it's none of that, right?
Right.
Because we have such a big attachment to that.
Well, it's funny you bring all this up. I just got finished the Four Agreements by can't think of his name, but it's a very popular book. Everybody knows it. One of the agreements is don't personalize, and I find that that's just ringing in my head as we have this conversation. Is like people a lot of times take those no's harder than they should because they personalize. And like you said, the no isn't even really about you. And I learned that from a mentor from mine years ago. The no could be really about their wife, or about their husband, or about their kids, or some other situation. It isn't necessarily saying no to you. It's saying no to whatever service, product, or proposition you're bringing their way.
Right. This is not an easy topic because it requires us to slow down and tap into ourselves. And a lot of us, with competing schedules, with life opportunities, with all that has to and offer. You see, DJ, with all that life has to offer, we tend to forget about ourselves. But I speak to my clients and students all the time and say this to them: when you're on an airplane, what do they tell you in case of emergency? Put on your mask first. You can't help anybody unless you're breathing. You can't do it. And so you have to take time to take care of yourself first. And honestly, whatever faith people believe is fine, but as the good book says, love others as you love yourself. Well, you got to love yourself first before you can love somebody else.
Right.
So you're out of order when you're trying to do for everybody else and trying to please people and all that stuff. It doesn't work. You have to come back and center yourself and take care of you. And then you're self-aware. You know where your boundaries are. You know where you can say no. You know when you can accept a no and give a yes and all that stuff. But it takes time. And this is not something that's taught. This is not, you don't have a class on emotional intelligence in college. You don't. You might, but you might be under that type of track because you're studying that. But they don't teach you that. I don't know. I didn't go to B school. I'm sure that I haven't seen on a roster emotional intelligence sign up here. Not
Right.
there.
Right.
Not
Right.
um
Well, before we go any further, so value yourself. So,
mhm,
right, I asked you a question about negotiations, about dealing with clients, about uh, not getting the raise you want. And
right.
it sounds like you said, one, value yourself,
Mhm.
and know that if things don't necessarily go your way, it's not a no against you.
Right.
And I guess you would probably say I'm putting words in your mouth now, but you could always come back, and you also don't necessarily have to accept whatever circumstance that they're throwing your way.
Nope. Nope. It's really, it's when you show up for your own life, this is you. And you're able to say whether this situation works or not. This is the reason why people are not happy at work, Kamara. People get up and go to work, and some people do not like their jobs, and they stay in these jobs forever because it is what it is. And they have these other goals and these other dreams and other stuff, but they, for whatever reason, stay where they are due to fear. I can't do this. I can't pay the mortgage. If I do this, this happens. But again, I learned this myself. Stand in your own and walking who you are, and it does help. Now, is it
But what does
easy?
that mean, though? Walking who you are. I mean, I hear
Walking
people
who
say
you
stuff
are.
like
I am not Kamari Ellis. You are not Chaundra Daniels. We are totally two made up individuals who are totally different. Our makeup is totally different. And I have something that I'm doing in this world, and you have something you're doing in this world, and our paths are crossing for whatever reason. But there's something that about me that I have to do in this world and get it done. And not everybody is going to agree with it, like it, know it. Some people will accept it and be a part of it, and that's okay. But if you go to are in a place that is not for you, it's not for you. And it's okay to say it's not for me. Some people like to stick stuff out because they just have to. They're loyal to something. And basically what they're loyal to is fear.
right, right.
And fear doesn't serve anybody. It exists for a reason, and it exists to push you into a better position in order for you to see yourself in a better light. But it's not there to keep you down. Fear has its purpose, but we're living in times that will never exist again. But we're living in very, what they call it, strange and interesting times. But
Hmm.
it's not that strange and it's not that interesting. It's a matter if we want to just say it is what it is. What's my place in it, and what do I have to do to move through it? And how do I affect it? Not everybody can fight this big fight. We all fight on different levels, or some of us don't even have to fight. Some of us are doing other things, you know. Um,
So, what things would you recommend that people either read or pay attention to, get tapped into, to help them further on their emotional intelligence journey?
what should they read? If I would recommend something, I would say, just to learn the topic, emotional intelligence. You can Google it. It's a 2.0. You can read it. It's a great book.
Oh, it's a book, Emotional Intelligence 2.0.
Right, right. And I'll Google it now to give you guys the right name. And then the other one is and I think you know this, Grow and Think Rich.
By Napoleon Hill.
Right, right. Now you have to read it to get the gems. So it's not going to lay it out and say do X, Y, and Z, but let the words soak up into you to give you an idea of what it's like to be able to think and grow rich. Now, rich and wealth are two different things. You and I both know that. But for the sake of this conversation, I think those are two good books to start with, at least to begin your journey with emotional intelligence. But it's not an easy topic. It's not something that people really want to, think about. And when we posted this today, a lot of people were responding to the wealth part. The
Hmm.
emotional intelligence part was like, huh? Like,
Yeah, like
right. But they
yeah,
saw the wealth part.
day's
Oh,
over.
show me the money, right? Show me the
Yeah,
money.
how to
Um,
get the bag.
yeah, let me how I get the bag. But you know what? You are the bag. That's when you realize that's what it is. You the bag, Kamari. I'm the bag. For real. I
That's
mean,
right.
you are the bag.
That's right.
And so the bag does not exist outside of you. The bag exists because of you. Oh, you better go ahead and stop preaching, Chaundra Daniels. Let me stop right there. But not in all honesty, if we're looking at growing wealth, you have to be able to understand that there are um, ways to develop your relationships. Emotional intelligence is has to do with how you engage with other people, and how you engage with other people really stems with how you engage with yourself. And when you don't take time to get to know who you are, it's very hard to kind of really interact with other people. Um,
Mhm.
another thing that I ask people to do is take time to unplug and meditate. You know this. I take a social media break every quarter. Take a month off. Just can't be on it. Just have to just unplug. And it helps because I get to do other things. I get to focus because when I come back on, I'm just straight marketing my business. I'm just straight interacting with folks, and I really post because letting people know what's happening. Not only in my life but stuff that can help them.
Right.
But you can't do that 365 days a year. You get on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and blah blah blah. You look up, it's 10 o'clock at night. If you do it every day,
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
so you really have to kind of unplug and really sit in silence. Oprah has a great video where she talks about, and it's a clip. Someone was interviewing her about what did she do to get to this place where she was when she first started on. And she said, I found a place in my yard, and of course Oprah's yard is like acres, but she found a place. She went out and sat under this tree. And she said, I just sat in silence. I just needed time to just connect, just to connect with the silence. And she said, in that silence, she was able to just even hear herself breathe. That we don't even think about that. Like breathing in and out is a rhythm, is something to that, but it gave her a chance to center herself. And I know I've used her in twice in this conversation, but if we're talking wealth, Oprah knew she was abundant in who she was before this even started. She got fired and took that firing as a way of catapulting herself to the next level, which is the next level, and now she is where she is. But the centering and really understanding who you are is key. It's so key. I could point you to 55 million books and 55 million stuff, but if you
No,
want to,
just the one that most moved you that you think will be most impactful.
well, the two I think was a good start. The two, I think will be the Think and Grow Rich. I know you've read it. Did you like that book?
Did I like it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, uh, it's somewhere.
Back there, right there in your arsenal of,
Yeah, it's
because you read a
somewhere
lot.
around there. And these even aren't even on my books. So
They're not
yeah,
even.
I mean, I agree. I mean, but that
Are they?
clip, it's funny, huh?
Whose books are they?
No, I'm saying I have more. That's
Oh,
not all of them. I have more.
yes.
Yeah, and then I've lost some in the flood over the years, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, the
But
book I talked about, yes, is Emotional Intelligence 2.0. And the author is Travis Bradberry.
okay,
Mm-hmm.
all
I'll
right,
listen to
cool.
you
Thank you,
the title. You're
thank you.
welcome.
Now I know you have something special coming up. I believe it's this week, and you are looking to raise some money for a nonprofit here in Philadelphia that specializes in helping children with technology and
Yes,
learning technology and learning STEM.
I am. I am. And you know what? I completely forgot about that. I got so caught up in our discussion about this because you're not gonna talk about this stuff all day. Yes, I have a comedy show on this Friday in Brooklyn, New York. It's the BFF comedy show, beautiful, fabulous, and funny. And we are fundraising for Tech Core 2, which is a STEM program for youth K through 12 in Philadelphia. And it is a great program helping our children begin to learn about technology, and is more of a pipeline for employment. As you know, Philadelphia struggles with the unemployment rate. And so this is a good way to start early, getting kids involved in what they can do, what they are capable of doing. And even if they don't end up going this route, they at least have a place to start. And so it's a great program for our children in Philadelphia. And we're just raising some money they just moved to a new location. And there's another class starting on the 29th. So trying to get some kids in. And so the BFF comedy show is my way of giving back. to the community and sharing my gifts and talents and my wealth, and using the resources. So it's kind of like an ecosystem. So we are at a new place called the Slope Lounge in Brooklyn. It just opened last Saturday, and it's a husband and wife team that have kids, and they just opened this beautiful Jamaican restaurant, really good food too, and great drinks.
Mm.
And then we have the comedians who are performing. We have a spoken word artist featuring from Philadelphia, so it has the Philadelphia New York connection. And then we have some raffle prizes from some local artists of Brooklyn and Philadelphia to give away. So we
Nice.
have all these people coming together. It takes a village, right? So
Absolutely.
I have the village of artists and restaurateurs helping with this endeavor to help TechCore be successful. So
So you do this show every month. How often do you do it?
every month, Friday is the first show. It's the third Friday of every month. It will be at the Slope Lounge, and tickets are available on Eventbrite. I know people are like, oh, but it's Friday night's a date night. Like it's Friday night date night. We're getting comedy and Jamaican food. You're getting the
And
funny
drink. And drink.
and drink, right? And
Right.
so come on, man. It's like it's a no-brainer, but it also is a good way to connect. It's a great networking opportunity. It's a very nice lounge. I mean, very well. It's beautiful. Actually, the stage is beautiful. The ambiance is nice. The neighborhood is really nice. It's like, I don't know, 10 blocks from Barclays. So it's a great place to be. And we have great comedians. The comedians we have launching this project are phenomenal. I am very happy they're handpicked, but they're also referred by other comedians who thought that they would be great for this endeavor. And then we'll be right back at it next month in October. I got that lineup ready too, guys. And it has some more Philly people coming. So I'm trying to keep the Philly pipeline open because I love that place. I love you guys.
so so what day of the month is it? Every month?
Third Friday of the
Every
month.
third Friday. And how much is it?
$20.
And where can they find the tickets?
Eventbrite, BFF Comedy Show.
So the BFF Comedy Show on Eventbrite.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, thank you, Chaundra. We truly appreciate you being here. Hopefully, someone got some pearls of wisdom because there were a lot dropped here. All they got to do is pick them up, examine them, and put them to use. So, again, thank you for being here. And definitely we'll have you back sometime soon.
Oh, thank you, Kumar. I always have a great time talking to you. Congratulations on the Money Hour. This is a great show. I really look forward to your continued success and appreciate you and what you do for our community. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, everybody, next week we'll be back, the Money Hour. Next week we're going to be talking about mortgages and credit. So we're going to get, we were talking about some soft stuff. Got to have some soft money stuff because money and wealth are all inclusive. It's a total package. It's a holistic thing. So you can't really talk about money. If you're being honest, you can't really talk about money if you're not talking about mind state. And last week we talked a little bit about spirituality, but all of those things come into play one way or another. So I'll see you all back here next week, next Wednesday from 7 to 8 p.m. The Money Hour. Kamari Ellis out. Have a great day, everybody.